We are joined with Mohammed, Shahid, but I'm more interested. People call you the Hawk. Where does this Hawk come from?
No, it's not really an interesting story, but it's actually a weird story behind it.
Turns into the most interesting story you've ever heard.
So basically, when we were young, you always have, you're brought up in Bahrain, and you always have this little gangs in schools, I'm the youngest in my family. I have 3 older brothers. So I was always the guy who could call my brothers to beat up somebody, So I didn't have to fight at all. So I had 3 older brothers, and we used to get into a lot of fights in school, outside school. But my oldest brother, he loved falconry, and he was from a very young age into falconry. And we always had either a cluster at home or an eagle or a falcon, one of those.
Wow.
They're always some bird at home, And so we started always getting into falconry and learning about books of falconry, videos of falconry. And one day, big brother's a big brother, he comes up and he says that, we're into falcons, but I don't know why he called us the Hawks family. And he decided to make it into Hawks rather than Falcon family.
Okay.
And we were like, you're the older brother, we go ahead with that. And we were young, so he just started naming each one as Hawk 1, Hawk 2, Hawk 3.
Yeah.
And I was Hawk 8.
8.
Yeah, because we had some cousins too.
Okay.
So I was Hawk 8, and once we grew up, everybody forgot about that brand, that name. It just stuck with me. You're the youngest, you always have that more loyalty to something that you're a part of. So it was always there with me. And as we grew older and I got into fights, fighting as professional fighting. I just took it with me, Since then, it's always been there. And when I opened my gym, it was Hawks Elite Combat Academy. So it was always Hawk everywhere. And then that name just stood. That was it.
Amazing. Okay, so were you a proper fighter?
Yep. I like to say that I was a proper fighter, So, that's the beauty of mixed martial art. And we're still learning that currently, that the sport keeps evolving and evolving. And today, when you look back at fighters from 15 years old, and you're like, they're not as good as the fighters who are there today. Technically, they're not as good because the sport has evolved a lot.
Really? So, in what way would you say? So the untrained eye, how could I tell the difference?
So when mixed martial arts started, we're talking about 91, 92, 93, right? This time I was in Japan and USA. There was not mixed martial art. It was no host barred fighting. It was not broadcasted on television. It was one of those days where it was a taboo.
So cage fighting stuff.
It was cage fighting, and it was really
pretty
brutal.
rough stuff.
Yeah, and so when UFC came in, their model was interesting. It was literally the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and that name is beautiful because it was to find out who's the ultimate fighter, in the world. So doesn't matter, you say that you're a guy who knows pressure points, or you're a guy who's a wrestler, or you're a guy who can beat 10 guys on the street, a street fighter. Yeah. Bring them all. Let's see who's the best fighter in the world, So that's how mixed martial arts started. So you had a boxer, when I say boxer, an actual professional boxer who does Western boxing. And he used to come into a UFC cage and used to have one hand a boxing gloves and the other hand without a gloves. And you're like,
what's going on?
What are you doing, So you always see this 100 kg guys coming with big mustaches, coming and going to beat up everybody, And there was a guy called Hoyce Gracie who came in. He was around 60 to 65 kg, somewhere around that line, skinny looking guy with a gi on, with a black belt, and everybody's like, what is he doing here, And he just drops everyone on the floor, and all those big guys who could throw heavy punches, could pick up guys and throw them out of the cage. All of those guys on the floor didn't know what to do. And then he just started choking guys out, submitting them. And everybody's just looking. And then
Do you remember his first match, when the first time you encountered this and you're like, what is happening?
Oh, yeah. This was, because that was the beauty of internet, right? And MMA grew with internet.
Yeah.
It was an internet time, so what we couldn't watch on television, we were watching on internet.
Yeah.
All the things, So
not that I'm that old, but yeah, I'm sure other people told me that.
But that time we were watching all the submissions and knockouts, so we didn't really understand what's going on. And we all defended our own martial arts. So I was doing Taekwondo at that time. So we were like, but Taekwondo is the best martial arts in the world. You know, you want to support our sport.
Like, no, kickboxing.
Exactly, you know. And then you see Muay Thai guys coming and giving low kicks and breaking some of the guys' legs, you know. So, but when you see this 65 kg guy come in and beat up all the guys, whether you're a boxer or a wrestler or anything, people start thinking that, oh, you know what? There's something called jiu-jitsu, you know, because whether you're a lion and once you go into the sea, you're nothing with a shark, you know. Regardless of whatever you are, how flexible you are, you're in that person's world. And that was what jiu-jitsu was for guys who didn't know what to do on the ground. To come to the point, so from that day onwards, everybody's like, I need to know what to do on the ground. So then they started learning what to do on the ground. And now everybody knows what to do on the ground. Everybody learned jiu-jitsu. And then there are wrestlers who come in and says, okay, you want to go on your back and start playing jiu-jitsu with me? I'm a wrestler and I know jiu-jitsu because I learned it. So now I can hold you there and keep you there and protect from any submissions that you throw at me and start throwing elbows and punches at your face. And let's see what happens to your submissions then. You know, so then the jiu-jitsu guy is like, okay, now I need to know how to defend those. So I have to evolve my jiu-jitsu. But at the same time, I also need to know how to stand up, not always go on the ground because there are wrestlers coming in and I need to keep them away and maybe I can outbox them. So let me learn some boxing. So it just kept evolving. The sport keeps evolving, and finally...
That's a really nice way that you put it, because like just to watch a match here or there, you wouldn't really appreciate that evolution of the skill sets and the strategy that's had to change, but it's quite a lot.
Oh, yeah, that's why we call... Now it's like human chess. They used to call jiu-jitsu human chess. Now I say MMA is human chess.
It absolutely is, you know. And I think one of the interesting things is like why I said like MMA came in like 91, 92. I think we all grew up as kids loving MMA without realizing it's MMA through the movie Bloodsport with Van Damme. That was MMA at its finest, you know what I mean? But it wasn't a sport back then.
And it's the same thing if you read the books of what Bruce Lee was writing at once upon a time at his time, you know, when he was doing Jeet Kune Do was the art that he was creating. And he was always telling guys that, no, don't stick to the traditional martial arts, go into learning what to do on the ground. There's arm bars, there's judo throws, you know, mix them up, move like a Western boxer, use your hands like a Western boxer. You can use your kicks like a Taekwondo guy, you know. So he was trying to mix it up. Of course, nobody could really understand that, but he could do that because he came from a different world, from China, and went to USA, so he saw both sides of the world. But MMA gave that a platform to let people watch the whole world come together and learn from each other. Until today, we haven't stopped learning. The beauty of mixed martial art today, when we talk about that, is that we're actually learning every time we see something. So today, we know wrestling, we know boxing, we know kickboxing, we know Muay Thai, we know jiu-jitsu, we know 10 types of jiu-jitsu, 10 types of kickboxing, we know how to clinch, we know how to knee, we know everything.
Yeah.
You know, and then they're like, but how do you fight in the cage? So now you could be on cage and somebody can control you on the cage. There's this cage control. Everything is involved in it. And then suddenly a new type of wrestlers come and start destroying everybody from Dagestan mountains, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like,
the Dagestani boys are hardcore.
you're like, who are these
Is
guys?
there something different happens there? Like, yo, they're doing something different in Dagestan.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a lot of Dagestani friends here.
Do you import the water there from a bottle? Like, you should bring it for us. I want the water from Dagestan.
I don't know, is it the water or... I think my Dagestani friends, we got like 10, 15 guys here waiting to meet me, you know. So every time I play around with those guys, you know, I'm like, what are you guys doing out there, eating babies or something? You know, so there's something different.
But you know, this is an interesting point because, you know, like whilst I want to get into the Bahraini journey of this, you know, obviously with guys from Dagestan, Chechnya, you know, parts of Russia, do you think it's the fact that they have harder lives that makes them harder fighters? Like for us, let's say regionally, do we have it too easy to become greats like that?
Good question. Definitely a factor for sure. But I also think that it's a lot to do with the culture and education. You know, so my parents came from India to Bahrain. You know, so in our world, the idea of the parents were, you're here, I'm looking after you, I'm taking care of you, I'm working hard. Don't expect me to tap you on the shoulders, give you, you know, come and appreciate what your drawing looks like. You know, don't get all that. I'm bringing food on the table, bringing money. You make sure you go to school, get educated, get your certificate, and get a job. And then one fine day, I wake up and I'm like, I quit. I'm not going to go to school anymore. I'm going to drop out. and I didn't finish my high school.
It must have been a shock for your parents.
Oh yeah, it was. I've had people call me from India and cry on the phone that I have no idea who they are, and then I was like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Why did you do it?" And I was like, "It was like you killed someone, you know." But
Especially, what did you say? I'm going to be a fighter.
Oh yeah.
And they're like,
yeah.
I brought you here for a better life, so you don't have to fight for survival.
Yeah, no worries. Oh, you should have said that before. Now I'm not
They have no
worried.
idea what fighting is. I mean, you can't even explain what mixed martial art fighting, prize fighting, professional fighting is. I mean, the whole region didn't know what professional fighting is, you know. All we know was Olympics. We know there's some karate competitions, taekwondo competitions. And my dad thought that that's what I'm going to do, you know, go and do some karate or taekwondo competitions.
Get some medals.
Yeah, get some medals and certificates.
Yeah, I think it's Asian parents. I don't think my mum knows what I do. I've tried to explain it to her a couple of times.
It's difficult.
Yeah, I used to be in law. She's got that. Now I'm in advertising. It's like, I don't get this.
I don't get it. But that culture, so at that point, and they were right, you know, realistically, from a roadmap perspective for my son or my daughter, that's my end goal for them, that I do something that they can continue their life with, an asset that I can give.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you had, what age were you when this happened?
When you quit school.
When I quit school?
Yeah, what age were you?
I was 17.
So if you had a 17-year-old boy now, and he was like, yo, Dad, I'm not doing that plan that you had. I'm going to go and be a Sherpa.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Smack him in the head. But that's the thing, right? I mean, in the end of the day, evolution, we keep evolving, and we learn a little bit, and we think that we're going to be different. Yeah. There's always going to be something. I mean, now we know the value of YouTube and podcasts and everything else, right? But if it was 10 years back, it would have been slightly different. But that's the cultural thing. So when our parents meet, and at that there was a phase that we were going through, my dad thought that all I was doing was just push-ups, and that was my job. and he was like,
how many push-ups a day are you doing, bro?
every time I walk, you know, in front of him, he had that look, and he's like, there's one of my kids who's just going and doing push-ups. You know? So, you know, he always had that. And I had to hear that, and he made sure of that. But the funny thing is...
Did he make fun of you and say, what are you going to do, be a bricklayer one day with all these muscles that you're trying to grow?
Oh, yeah. He did, definitely.
There's Asian parents' jokes, man. Yeah, they got them.
And the interesting thing was, I realized something at that time was that there was a phase that they went through, and they were embarrassed to talk to other parents. Because they would ask, what's your son doing? And it's like, he left school and he's not doing anything.
He's doing push-ups.
So now I understand Dagestan better, because in Dagestan, because we have a lot of friends there, they have that same conversation, and they ask each other, parents, what does your son do? And he's like, what sports does he do? That's what they mean. Nothing to do with anything else. So
really?
if they say that, my son, he's not interested in sports, everybody's like, whoa, you know.
No
so
way.
you feel the dad or the parents are embarrassed that their son doesn't do any sport. So you get
and
them
fighting is a big sport there, like wrestling especially,
4-year-old,
right?
3-year-old kids in the garden, you see them wrestling, and you know,
It's got to be a man, you know what I mean?
They're on the gardens, just single legs and double legs. You know, it's crazy. So it's just a cultural thing that's a big factor. But of course, like you said as well, I mean, you know, they've gone through that. The culture itself comes from a tough background, you know. That is very important. But we proved that wrong in Bahrain, saying when you say that if you do have a right mentality, you have the right motivation, and you give them the right direction and education, you can get the youth changing into that mentality and understanding it better. But you need to do a lot of things. It's just not talking. You have to put the example in front of them, get them involved, give the infrastructure, a lot of things behind it. And that's where the story of His Highness Sheikh Khalid and sports come into the country. What he's done for mixed martial art or combat sports in the country, he's done that. He's brought the examples to the country. He's made the infrastructure. He's created that international relationship. And he's put all that puzzles, what a kid who has a dream or wants to be a fighter or thinks of being a fighter or doesn't even know what fighting is but could be educated by it. Everything is around them now in Bahrain, you know. So if you think about the best fighting camp, if you think about the best facilities, if you think about the best coaches, everything is here in Bahrain. This is one of the best training camps in the world today. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that we got such an amount of quality here. Like sometimes Bahrain gets a bad rap in people's minds because the problem is you just get used to how good life is here. And it's not until you go on holiday, like, actually, it's pretty spectacular back at home. Like, we've got this amazing facilities, but you truly wouldn't appreciate that unless you try to do this in another country where it doesn't exist. Not in the same way. and the same type of support.
Yeah,
There's really something.
Do we have many MMA gyms in Bahrain? Like, if you wanted to learn?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, COVID had hit
Everyone
on
beating each other up.
Hit on the gyms. Definitely, you know, I mean, gyms. It was always about getting people together and working out with each other. Especially, I'm talking about the martial arts and combat sports gyms. So it did affect a little bit, but I remember the first jiu-jitsu gym in Bahrain. We had RMAC, Razas Martial Art, and we had the first MMA gym, Bahrain MMA. And since then, since KHK came in, His Highness took over. The last time I remember, we had over 17 to 18 gyms in Bahrain for MMA.
Wow.
So some of them has been affected by COVID, but there's still a lot of gyms to train.
Are you concerned in any way, since, you know, obviously you're promoting, you know, the MMA atmosphere and the ecosystem, with if you notice, like with parenting today, we're very soft on our children. Yeah, they just want to sit, play PlayStation, you know, and then play some Fortnite, you know. Definitely. I think, is it a challenge to get parents to be like, I want him to go get beaten up, you know, every day?
Yeah. I mean, that was the question we always had. I mean, when we tried to analyze the market in the Middle East, and we were like, there was, you know, all the CS, we know the Muhammad Alis, we know the Mike Tysons, regardless of watching their fights or seeing their fights, we still know the name. Our parents know their names, you know, who's Muhammad Ali's or who's Mike Tyson's. But why didn't that sport, combat sports, become so big here? I mean, we always thought it was a cultural thing that we didn't want our children to go and get, you know, beaten up, you know, and that's what we thought the situation was. But realistically, I think with His Highness Sheikh Khalid and KHK coming in, and when they saw that there is opportunity and there is a future, in the end of the day, that's all that matters. You know, there is an opportunity, there's a future for it, and the sport develops, that art develops. You know, so if we show that chess is going to have a great future, and there's going to be people becoming millionaires and becoming world famous with that, and you can create that platform, chess is going to grow back, and that is what's happening with the internet today. The chess is coming back to life because all the internet influencers are coming there playing chess, and the content is growing. They're making money out of those content, and the blitz chess, this shorter time, in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't know. You know, they do that, and it's growing at a fast pace, so that's changing too.
I think recently with Andrew Tate, always like, my dad's a chess player, my dad's a chess player. Like, he really blew up the chess.
That had an impact. For sure. And it's funny that, you know, it's crazy how, you know, Andrew Tate, I mean, what he did in the podcast world or in the internet world.
Incredible.
It's crazy. And I was telling the guys that when he talks and he speaks a lot about fighting and stuff like that, and I'm like, you should watch Brave Romania. And when you watch Brave Romania, you'll find that we had kickboxing with MMA, by the way, because we had a partner in Romania who we co-promoted with. And we had Andrew Tate fighting in our promotion at that time. And that was, I think, Romania was 2020, I think, 2021.
In an MMA fight, right?
No, kickboxing. He was a kickboxing guy.
Because he's done MMA as well.
Yeah. But in that promotion, in our event, we had Brave was MMA, and our co-promoters did kickboxing in the same platform.
I did see the Brave logo in one of his fights. Yeah, that's right.
That was the one.
You watched his fights?
Yeah.
And so you realize that majority of the things he says, you should realize how much of that is true and how much of that is not really true, you know. But a lot of people who don't know him and who's not dealt with him don't really know that. Yeah. But it is what it is. I mean,
I think
it's a crazy subject.
Everyone's alive to the fact that you say stuff online, there's repercussions. You want to get famous quickly by saying wild stuff? It's going to be a price.
But a lot of his stuff was taken out of context, I feel.
You're an Andrew Tate fan?
I am, I'll be honest,
You're an Andrew Tate fan?
Do you know what? Like, I think, like, you know, with good and bad, there's always two sides to every coin. Sure. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, yes, I do think he would have motivated people to become fighters, to become better men, etc., you know? Which kind of balances he's kind of balancing the PlayStation culture. Right. If that makes sense.
But you think he's promoting men to be better men?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to actually see his content to understand. You know what I mean? A lot of people judge without seeing.
See, in the end of the day, you know, we are also in a world where we say that we have to respect everybody's opinion. Yeah. You know, and freedom of speech and everything else, right? But at the same time, the issue I have is contradiction. If you are sticking to one opinion and one view, a little bit of research, a little bit of knowledge on that subject would really help. Exactly. It would go a long way, you know?
I agree.
So that's where I have an issue with some of the people. You know, I mean, I'm not specifically saying Andrew Tate, but anyone who comes out and has a platform like this, which you guys are providing for me today, I'll definitely think twice. Whatever I'm going to say, I will speak about mixed martial art, definitely,
Yeah.
because I know.
Yeah.
But if you ask me about any other subject that I'm
Random,
not aware of, I would just listen and I would say, yeah, I would believe whatever you say, because I don't want to say something that I don't know about.
Yeah.
But if someone is going to go out there and say that this is a subject I know about, at least, do a little bit of research, learn a little bit,
Makes sense.
Would help. Don't contradict yourself.
Makes sense.
You can't go out there on a podcast and say that the highest IQ is for someone. Google it, and then you Google it. It's not. So you're like, why would you do that? You just have to.
It's entertainment,
You say it's entertainment.
but
I don't know.
Simple as that. You just didn't have to. You could have always gone and said that Google the system.
Yeah.
I really like how you say you didn't have to. That's the perfect. You just didn't have to.
Yeah.
It describes my views on this guy.
That shows preparation, right? Lack of preparation. You have guys like Jordan Peterson who's preparing for what they're going to be saying out there, and well prepared. And again, today, still people are finding a lot of contradictions from his past and today. But at the moment, yes, people change. My opinion today might not be the opinion. I could change my opinion 10 years after. It's fine. But at that particular time, I'm prepared and believing in my opinion, and I could answer whatever it is. So preparation is lacking in Andrew Tate, I think. When he speaks, I think that's my only comment on that.
So I have a separate point I was going to say about, you were talking about how whether kids in Bahrain would be interested in fighting. But this, at least for myself, and I want to ask if this is true for you, but you started fighting at a much earlier age than I did. I think there's a value, an inherent value to doing these sports that isn't to do with beating people up, and it's discipline. And I think that's something, it's not about, people are soft now or back in my day. It's a human thing. Discipline at a young age helps you in life. And I think that's something people really should understand about Brave, MMA, the mission you're trying to push out there. It's more deep than just, let's go have a fight.
No, and
what it takes to take you there, that
confidence
mindset
is the most important thing as well.
For me, it's not the confidence, it's that discipline. It's such an undervalued tool in life. What that will give you, the results you will get, where you will go.
Yeah, you're giving me goosebumps now. Because really, that's it. You nailed it there. What discipline. Such an important word, It's such an important word because... And the problem is not only that discipline is such an important word. The problem is that I'm not talking about everybody, I'm not generalizing, but from where some of the education system that you come up from, you think of that as a negative word because the moment you ask a question and then there's the person who's supposed to teach you tells you, keep your mouth shut, sit down there, and this kid doesn't have discipline.
Yeah.
And then you immediately think discipline is being quiet and sitting in the corner, not doing anything.
Maybe it's not that.
And eventually that became the concept. And then I thought that was what discipline was. And I had a very negative thought on discipline. I'm like, I'm a rebel. I'm indisciplined. That's how it is. That's how I'm going to go, And you get that mentality in there. And then I started doing martial arts. And again, martial arts, I keep that aside. When I got into actual preparation to fight, it was different than anything I've done in my life. And since then, I've coached a lot of students, and all of them, I tell them one thing, that I'm not trying to encourage you to go into the cage and fight, but I'm just telling you that once in your life, you should do that. Try that, just like going and trying out anything in your life. Go to the mountains, go to the beach, or try going into a fight. Preparation, even if you don't fight, prepare for a fight. And what that does for you is, I'm not getting very philosophical here because I don't want to sound like that, but everything in life that you learn, whether it's business, running a family, or how to be a father, how to be a husband, how to be a wife, how to be a son, how to be a brother, how to be a sister, everything of that comes down to realizing that one of the words which is very famous, which Bruce Lee says, be water, my friend, and none of us understood. That was cool to hear because his accent was really good, right? So, but be water. But he was a cool guy, but we never understood what he really meant. And it was like, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. And we were like, wow, it's so cool. But what he was really trying to say, God bless him, but what he was really trying to say, and I started realizing all of this. So I started reading Book of Five Rings, Musashi Miyamoto, started reading Bruce Lee's books, I started reading a lot of philosophical books. And I'm like, everything comes down to the same core of understanding yourself,
Yes.
knowing yourself.
Yes.
And how do you know yourself? Only if you know yourself, you can be disciplined.
Yes.
So then I went behind discipline. To achieve discipline, you have to know yourself. And then you realize, how do you know yourself? You know, what is knowing
journey,
yourself?
baby.
And then you realize that there's a, I don't know if it's real, but they say it's a Chinese proverb, that they say that you know yourself so well that not even a tiger's claw can pierce through your heart, because you become void, you become non-existence, because who are you? I'm not this person, I'm this with you, but that's not who I am with my mother.
Yes.
I'm that my mother, but that's not who I am with my wife or with my kids or with my friends or with my employees, with my boss or with my colleagues. I'm always different. So what am I really? You know?
Yeah.
That is who I am. That understanding and that knowledge that I have about myself. How do you understand that is all around emotions. And so you really realize, how do you understand your emotions? Today I'm happy, tomorrow I'm sad, some days I'm excited, some days I have anxiety, I go into depression. So there's so many feelings out there. But how do I deal with these feelings and how do I understand these feelings is a step behind that too. So you're going into each of the feelings and trying to break that down.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not getting too philosophical, but I'm
This
trying
is
to get somewhere.
amazing, but I super agree with what you're saying.
So I'm trying to understand these feelings, right? And I'm like, how do I understand happiness? How do I understand sadness? And then when you prepare for a fight, my first walk into a fight, you walk in like, you know, all that game face on, and you have so much fear inside your heart, so much fear inside your heart. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. And I was in Thailand alone by myself for the first time. I'm leaving GCC, right?
Is that a kickboxing fight?
It was a Muay Thai fight, and I'm in Thailand in Koh Samui, and I had all those Thai guys around me. There was guys drunk, saying things, throwing money. One guy coming to me, and he's trying to tell me that I put 10,000 on you. You know, and everybody's speaking Thai language, and then I have my coaches talking to me in Thai, and I don't understand my coaches even. And they put me in a room, and they put some oil on me, and they put me in a robe, and then they put some flowers on top of my head, you know, because it's like preparing a chicken to get slaughtered, right?
Like the movies.
Yeah, and they put me to sit, and I'm watching the fight, and I'm sitting there, my heart is beating, you know. But I'm like, wow, I'm achieving my dream. This is everything that I came here for. I left school, I did everything to come here, to reach here, to be a professional fighter, and that's my first professional fight, whatever it is. I came all the way to do that. So I'm excited. I'm happy that I'm doing this. But my heart is beating so fast, and it's fear. And I look to my left, and I see a guy just like me, but with a different color robe, sitting next to me. I look at him, and I smile at him because, hey,
nervous.
You know, what's up? Yeah. And he looks at me, and he's like, he gets pissed off, like he's having that angry face, and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm sure he doesn't speak English too.
Thai guy?
Yeah, Thai guy. So I was like, there's no point saying anything else. So I just keep looking forward, and the fight was over, and they're like, oh, both of you, your turn. I was like, oh, that was my opponent. You know, so
he knew, he was giving you the game face, he was intimidating you.
Hey, what's up, bro?
I was trying to be nice and, you know, get some comfort from someone, you know, get some positive energy. And then I went, I went into the ring, and I was there, and I can't remember half of the things what happened. The only thing I remember is that I threw some knees at him. He was on the floor, knocked out, and I
You knocked him out, or he knocked you?
I knocked him out, and I couldn't remember half the fight because there was so much emotions there.
Yeah.
And I remember my coach trying to take off my gloves, and then there's this guy, the guy who said he put money on me. He came up and he's like, my win is yours, and he's also drunk. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Should I take it with my gloves? Because my gloves cannot take the money. And I'm panicking, and the coach is taking off my gloves. And I'm like, I bite the money. I'm like, I should get the money because I couldn't live there. I used to live for almost 6 months in Koh Samui in WMC gym. Shout out to them, one of the greatest guys that helped me a lot to survive there, because I was in Thailand all by myself, and I lived on Nutella and protein shake for 6 months. So, but you know,
I heard you say this in one of your that you lived on protein shakes while you were in Thailand. And you bought it from Bahrain because you can't afford.
Yeah. So I had to take it, and I was just living breakfast, one scoop, and then Nutella for some energy. You need that, you know. So you can't just live on protein. You need some sugar. So and water is fine, right? Like whatever kind of water you get there, but it was fine. So the key was I finished that fight. I was back.
How did you feel when you won? Like,
I don't know. There was so much emotions, right? So the next thing I remember is that I'm back on the flight to Bahrain. I still have those tapes that when they wrap the hands. I still have the tapes. I didn't get that off because I had a flight. I had to get back, pack up, and move. So sitting on the flight, I don't know what's happening. I'm going back to Bahrain, and I'm like, I have this comfort feeling that I'm going to see my family, my friends, my students, my everybody that I know of, and I'm going to see Bahrain airport. You know, that's the happiest thing, right? And I'm sitting there, and my hands are shivering, and I have this the glue from the tape, and I realized, whoa, hold on. I had the biggest fear in my life was to fly in a plane, and right now I'm sitting with no fear of flying. You know, I'm flying back, and I have no fear. You know, and then I was like, I reached to a tipping point of my emotions that everything else is okay. And then every fight, it was not about the fight anymore for me. It was about those feelings, to understand those feelings. Then I realized that I am a guy who's playing the, I don't know, the orchestra, like you're controlling the
maestro.
music. Yes, so you're the maestro, so you're controlling the music. So you have to adjust your emotions, 70% fear, 20% excitement, not zero fear because you'll be an idiot. You need that amount of fear. A little bit of happiness, make sure that you have that, excitement, anxiety, keep them all on the same level, and you go inside. Get yourself outside your body, watch yourself, play with yourself, play with your emotions, use the right emotions at the right time, and at the same time, keep your mind working to think what's going on. Now, that is knowing yourself, but that was only the first phase of discipline. Yeah. But how to use that with another person around you makes all that worthwhile. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of knowledge that you have, and you think you're the best in the world, and then you're back to square one, you know? But how do you use that with people around you? That makes a difference. And the third phase is, of course, legacy, which is how to pass that information, if you can, in the best way possible, whether it's a book, whether it's writing, whether it's by building the infrastructure, whether it's by platforms like this. But how do you pass that on to the next generation, whether they take it or not? These three phases are the key important phases in life, and that is why I always believe being legendary and having a legacy is the key, and there is a phases to reaching there. So to achieve all that, it doesn't happen without discipline, you know. So coming back to the word discipline, it's everything. It's everything. Today, Bahrain.
What you've just done is give, for me, the perfect sales pitch about why this matters. For a parent, for someone listening, because it's so... The journey you've been on, I remember myself before I believed in a lot of these things and didn't appreciate the value that that can give you as a much younger man. But once you do and you go through that other thing, it transforms your life. Yeah. And as someone young who might be feeling lost, might have feeling journeyless or nothing matters or nihilism or whatever it is, this helps center you in a truly unique, healthy way. Yeah. And there's not many things that can do that other than sport.
100%, and that's why, for me, people think, oh, you're an MMA guy, you love mixed martial art, that's your favorite sport. I say, no, football is my favorite sport. Football is my first love, you know. Okay. MMA is only my second love, you know. Soccer, football, that's my first love, you know, and that's everything to me, you know. I would watch football all day long if I have to, and then re-watch the highlights again if I have to. So I'm that much in love with the sport of football. Why do I stick to MMA? And I'm glad that I'm part of this vision of His Highness for MMA is because I think going into a war, in the military and going into a war is the first, and the second closest thing that could get you all that feelings and make you understand so much about this, bring all that feelings out at the same time. There's nothing other than fighting, you know. And I'm not talking about just a competition in traditional martial arts. I'm talking about just going in there and knowing that that individual has learned you, sat with you, and had a team behind him, watching your videos, learning you, what you're doing, following your Instagrams and social medias, and training, preparing for you to destroy you and make sure that whatever humanly possible that you're capable of doing, you're not going to be able to do that. And you're going to have your family, friends, girlfriend, wife, whoever it is that you love, watching that happen to you by another man. And that is what you're going to walk into. And that's what you're preparing for. And that feeling, believe me, it's different, because I could lose a football match 3-0, 10-0, 7-0, 7-1. Sorry to the Brazilian. But whatever the score is, in the end of the day, it's a match. You know, I go back and I'm like, that CDM, he didn't do his job, you know, whatever the reason it might be. But then there's the next match. But when I lose a fight, it's different. Now, that's where you respect individuals in martial arts that can lose fights and come back. And that coming back is not like losing a match and coming back in any sport, you know, even in traditional martial arts, you know, but this is different. This is
a little pride and ego and things involved, and like,
so
and
much
your
more.
confidence gets shattered as well.
100%, and you doubt yourself a lot. That's
Yeah.
where understanding yourself is the core of the sport. It's everything, and that's why I say that every human should be doing mixed martial art, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Because that teaches a lot about yourself. If that is going to be an education that is so important, I'm not saying that you should learn mixed martial art at age of 3 itself. No. As you grow, take it step by step, and that's where KHK MMA as our organization is creating that step by step phases, working with the International Mixed Martial Art Federation, collaborating and doing the right thing of creating a grassroots development program. Today we just got the good news that Bahrain's Mixed Martial Art Federation is elected as the president of Asian Mixed Martial Art Federation.
Oh, wow.
I just got the message right now. So why did that happen is because they see the infrastructure and the development program that we have done for our youth, for the next generation. And how did we do that? That's a case study. Bahrain is a case study for mixed martial art. And today you see the young youth that went to Abu Dhabi for competition in the Youth World Championship. You look at them and you're like, that kid doesn't look Bahraini. I mean, that's not the Bahraini kid I know of. This kid is having thick neck, he looks tough, confident, and he can't wait to get inside and destroy his opponents. You see the confidence level in him. You see that he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He knows what he's going inside there for, and he has no doubts. And but like you said, when you lose, when you get knocked out or something happens, it also teaches you a lot. It's not just another loss in any sport. You go back. The first thing you feel like doing is for a week locking your room and staying there. Don't talk to anybody. Switch off your phone, because everybody's gonna call you and try to send you good wishes, and you don't want that, because you don't want the sympathy, because this is about you and yourself, and you have this, and then you're like, is this a good thing to do? Should I go back the next day and get back to training? But I go to the gym and I have to see everybody there, and everybody's gonna look at me with that face, or everybody's gonna come back and clap for me. So you see, the dealing with emotions, it comes all the way back to that, and I think that's the training for mixed martial art, is how to deal with that emotions and how to deal with yourself and know yourself, and then everything else becomes the next step.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Did I ask you a question? So, like, I think it's fair to say that Conor McGregor changed the landscape for MMA. Like, he basically took people who were non-fighting fans and turned them into fans who would want to watch it because of the entertainment value, right?
Sure.
The trash talk, Do we have trash talkers in this region? In Brave, do we have trash talking and stuff as well that gets the entertainment of the crowd? Because I find like a lot of these UFC fights, and I mean, Khamzat, for example, was with Brave before. I mean, yes, he's an incredible fighter. He hasn't lost yet. But it's just the way he's like, I smash everybody, I kill everybody, Like, this is what makes it so entertaining to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
Do we have this element?
100%. I mean, I'll put it this way. I mean, we as Brave Combat Federation, our vision is very simple. Our vision is, if you look at His Highness Sheikh Khalid and the vision of KHK, we are into different sports, from horse racing to football to, we have 13 different sports we're involved with, and then you're looking at mixed martial art, and it's slightly outside the circle. And then you have that sport that's out there. There was no reason to enter mixed martial art other than, one, we're a little romantic to mixed martial art and combat sports, but on the other hand, it was literally, if we're going to be involved in that, it's to change the sport from what it is today, which is an event business, to a sports business. And exactly, we enjoy the entertainment, which we enjoy in any sports, but definitely, like you said, there's a little more in combat sports when it comes to trash talking. There's pushing and shoving,
it's
and
the pre-fights that are even more fun than the fights themselves.
Which we definitely enjoy, and we love to see that. Yeah. But on a long run, what happens?
And they make it feel personal between the fighters.
One day, what if that doesn't exist anymore?
Then it will lose the entertainment value.
Exactly. So this is where the sports dies. Yeah. And that's what happens to boxing.
Yeah.
We lost the Mike Tyson that bit off people's ears. We lost the Mike Tyson that walked in without music. Why the hell would he walk in without a music? Put some music on. And the opponent is watching, and all they're hearing is the fans screaming and a crowd walking around there. And you see this guy, he doesn't have a robe. He has a towel torn and around his neck, and just walking without music, and all I could hear is my heartbeat. The opponents already lose before seeing the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, when we lost that guy in boxing, and then of course we did have Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather and so many great boxers, but you start losing when the entertainment value is not at that highest peak level.
Yeah.
We start losing it because the sports value doesn't exist because we're in the event business.
Yeah.
What His Highness and Brave, what we're trying to do is why we're investing in the governing body, why we are globalizing Brave Combat Federation, and why we are bringing a new model of Brave National Leagues, which is a La Liga, Bundesliga, Premier League, IPL model into MMA, is because we can sustain it as a sport business rather than an event business. Today you have Conor McGregor and Khabib fight, or Shakira and Beyonce fight. It's the same thing, because you're selling tickets, entertainment value, and all that stuff. You could make anybody fight. So what's being more bigger? What's being more bigger is celebrity fights today.
Yeah,
that's being more
like the YouTube scene,
yeah,
the Jake Pauls,
yeah. All that stuff is being more entertaining. So it comes down to that core thing that you're losing the sports value, and I do enjoy all of it.
But it brings a new audience,
yes,
fresh eyes,
100%. But when you're looking at sports itself, where do you want the sports to be in 30 years down the line? And if you think this today's for a little bit of that quick high that we want to get because of entertainment, or 30, 40 years all of that sport is going to die in next 20, 30 years, then it's useless for this little high for our pleasure. What about our children? So we always look at that and we sit down and say that, what if my son comes up or daughter comes and tells me that I want to be an MMA fighter? What's my answer to them? I could either tell them, I would do what's best for them, believe me, to be successful, by the way. So I could have two answers for them. One, spend your next 10 years having a YouTube channel and have consistent content every day on that, and work on the algorithm hacks of the YouTube, and work on other platforms, Instagram, drive them for the next 10 years. Or go to a gym and train hard day in, day out, and make that a commitment. But what's good for my children today is to tell them to go have a YouTube channel, because that's what's going to bring them success.
And both. I think there's a mix there.
Sure.
Like what's happening today is, like, for example, I think Khabib's a good example of this, because undoubtedly one of the best fighters ever.
No doubt.
But not very entertaining to listen to pre-fight and post-fight. I mean, nothing is... I love Khabib, you know what I mean? But, you don't go to the pre-fight conference for that. But whereas Conor insulting him...
True.
Now, Conor's the bad guy within that, totally, right?
Yeah,
but that's what brings the viewership, right?
100%.
And I think fighters are realizing this now, that they now have their own podcast. They're very more active on social, because they need to bring the eyeballs into them and their fights as well.
100%. That's the only way now. That's why it's more important to have that than the other side, which is why we are looking and saying, we want to have a Lionel Messi in mixed martial art.
Yeah.
I don't have to listen to his interviews. I don't know if he speaks English. I never listened to Lionel Messi's interview, by the way.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking about it, I've never listened.
I actually never listened to any of his. I don't know either.
So I'm glad Hussein brought that up, because there's actually an ulterior motive of us being here today. Hussein would like to fight your top fighter. We're announcing it, everybody. Hussein is ready. He's challenging. Which one's the one you want to fight?
Let's go. But seriously,
since we have to take care of time, we do have Eldar Eldarov, the world champion at super lightweight in Bahrain, so we could make that happen. Really
sure,
quick.
Why not? You said everyone has to do it once, right?
Exactly.
Might as well just die in right there.
But I also said the importance of preparation. You missed that part.
No, I know. Can I ask you a question, sir? Sure. As Brave, as a promotion. So you sign up fighters.
Yeah.
Do you then give them social media training, or do you get involved at all in their social media accounts?
We do advise. We definitely don't involve in terms of what they should, how their personality should be. We don't. That's why we don't involve in the as Brave as an organization. We don't promote or say that we need it. We understand the importance of trash talking and all that entertainment, but our goal is a long-term goal of changing the sport from an event business to sports business. So we are focused on that. So when we have athletes, we don't try to tell them to change their personality to whatever it is.
I don't mean by change their personality.
On social media.
I just mean maybe there's a fighter who doesn't have an Instagram account, or is not active.
Yes,
you know
definitely.
what I mean? Is there like a Brave social media department to make sure that they're constantly promoting themselves?
Definitely. I mean, that's one of the interesting things why we think Brave had the value over every other promotion that's there in the world today, is that we've taken that different roadmap for how to make an athlete into a superstar. So you could
that's what I meant.
Yeah, you could have Khabib. Very interesting example when you spoke about Khabib. I mean, until he fought Conor, a lot of people didn't know a lot about him as much as they knew after he fought Conor McGregor. But at the same time, if you think about it, what he has done before that, before fighting Conor, undefeated for
Incredible,
so many
yeah.
years, day in, day out. He's just out there training every day as hard as he can, goes and fights each and every one that puts in front of him and destroys them. You know, you never seen a picture of
And
Khabib.
he's been wrestling bears since he was a kid.
You never
so-
see a picture of Khabib really with a lot of damage on his face.
Yeah.
You know, in any of his fights. So you reach to that point that you're at the highest level, and then you realize, what else do you need to do to be big in the sport? You know, I mean, what's next? I mean, it was always about the talent. I thought that talent was the only variable. You could have Lionel Messi in mixed martial art, you know.
And it wasn't true, yeah?
Yeah, so for us, we are today becoming a voice, and when the new model comes in, we think that's going to be the new era of mixed martial art, and that's going to be the change of event business to a sports business. But as of now, we're doing something slightly different, is globalizing. We have gone to 28 countries and 5 continents today in 62 events in 6 years' time. And that's broken the UFC's record for what they have done for, I think, 29 years. You know, how many countries they have traveled. So we've become the most global mixed martial art promotion in the world today, a Bahraini-born brand.
It's amazing.
But what makes that model special is to have a Swedish fighter with Chechnyan origin become the main event in India. Doesn't make any business sense, you know.
That's quite the sentence.
Yeah.
You're talking about
What
Hamza,
happened?
right?
Hamza Chimaev.
Yeah.
And his 6 fights and what he has become. And then you have a 13-year-old kid, or 14, I think, when he was 14. His Instagram post, on the comment, you have the Prince of Bahrain tagging the CEO of KH Ken Brave on his Instagram comments. And then that kid today becomes Mohammed Makayev, the biggest star in mixed martial in UK, and who's going to be fighting on October 21st in UFC.
How does that actually work, that ecosystem? So how did Hamza come through Brave and then end up at UFC?
We have something, we really give importance to the scouting program.
Okay.
People use the word, I mean, again, in mixed martial art, in boxing, all of this, we use the word matchmaking. So I think that's only in arranged marriages. So I don't think it should be in sports, the word, you know, but they use the word matchmaker, you know.
You're finding a dance partner.
Yeah. but for me, I think it's scouting program,
Yeah.
you know. When you have a scouting program and you bring in 5 best athletes, they're the 5 best athletes. Let them fight against each other to find out who's the best fighter.
Yeah.
Why do you have to make any matches?
Yeah.
You know, anybody fighting anybody makes a good fight, you know. So we have an athlete relation department, a scouting program that is very intense, that we have a lot of guys who love watching fights, like how I love watching football. So they would go around watching every promotion that's there in the world, in different parts of the world, at the same time do an intensive research and scouting. And of course, now we have the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, which is the amateur levels, which makes it so much more easier for us to see a guy who's 29 fights like Mohammed Makayev going into doing his pro debut, but has 29 fights experience, 3 times world champion, or, you know, those kind of credentials. And we don't need to really scout anyone anymore, and we can just pick and choose from there, just from the amateur records. So we do that, and we bring them on board, and then we try to make sure that the machine of Brave that travels around the world, one is the exposure through our broadcasting, through our social media, and at the same time our marketing team does the storytelling and everything else. But at the same time, what also happens is for them to be, like I said, you know, Swedish fighter with Chechnyan origin to fight in Hyderabad in India doesn't make any business sense for Brave, but one of his biggest fan base came from India, and that opens the doors to making an individual a global star. If I believe is if Lionel Messi was still playing in some corner of Argentina till today, he would have still been the talent he is. That wouldn't change. But if that structure wasn't there that soccer has today, where there's buying and selling, regulation, governing bodies, they're able to move to different countries, and you see all these kids from Brazil and Argentina, and people like Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, all of them in football, because they have an ecosystem that allows you to come from wherever in the world, but be wherever you can be. And that's Brave. One of the goals that we're trying to do with athletes we have today. We can't do that with everybody until the system changes, and that's the end goal. But what we have today is with the athletes, the 700 athletes we've had in our promotion throughout the past 6 years, we've tried to take them around the world. So we've had Philippines fighter defending his title in Ireland against a South African fighter.
As a Brave event?
Yes, and then you have an Irish fighter fighting in Bahrain, while you have an Indian fighter going to Brazil. So this transition of fighters traveling around the world and being able to compete, they're getting fan base from different places, and everybody's learning about that. So a lot of people who didn't know the fighters who fought Hamza Kohiji, they would have never known those fighters. Now they know them because they were fighting against someone they know, and then they learn about their opponents, and whatever happens in that fight, they go to watch and they see a bunch of other country athletes.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys in Bahrain before Gamzat Chimaev, while he was in Brave and when he was fighting and he was running through his opponents, and there were so many guys that were there and they were like, this is the best fighter I've seen in the world, and yeah, that's what we do. That's Brave Combat Federation. We bring the best around the world.
Do they come under contract of Brave? Like, do they have X amount of fights they have to do on contract? Just like in the UFC, like, for example, Nate Diaz having his last fight. Yeah?
It's the same business model. It's
and then are they free agents to go wherever they want after?
Yeah. Unless you renew
the contracts. Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same model as of now, which is where these are the little issues that we have in mixed martial art today as a sport, because based on the event model, you can't give an athlete a monthly salary. So you're not getting a monthly salary like other athletes.
But in sport, but you wanted to go to the sports model, right? So then will they be on a monthly salary in your vision of the direction and not event-based, which is fight-based?
It's something that, we're the weird ones, It's MMA and boxing are the weird ones, and then we have a cousin WWE, which is not even real, So so they're there, So we took as MMA, we looked at our big brother and we looked at boxing and we took that model, 10-9 system for judging, fight, matchmaking and all that stuff. And then we're like, but we're gonna change the model and we need to have a brand controlling everybody under that brand. So let's look at our cousin WWE model, make it a brand, get them all under one contract, and that's MMA today. So nothing, we just took from our cousin and our older brother and we made a model. And the interesting part is it became the fastest growing sport in the world. Sure, today
I would say it's one of the most popular sports in the world today.
Which one?
MMA.
MMA is
the UFC really took it.
MMA is the fastest growing sport in the world along with esports, no doubt. Fastest fan base growth sport in the world, 100%. The most global sport in the world, 100%. The largest valuation growth in the world, 100%.
And it's innovative compared to boxing. I know you mentioned boxing before, but like boxing got a bit stagnant. Bit boring. Like you're not seeing the big matches or the big fighters fighting each other.
Yeah. One day I think
12 rounds, quite slow. You know what I mean? MMA is a totally different beast. It's like very
And I think it depends on how you keep the interest of the people, right? So I think one day MMA might reach there unless somebody takes the responsibility and change it. We're still young. It's still a young sport, 40-year-old, 45-year-old sport. We can change the mind. Boxing is 100+ years old. There's no way you can go back and tell them to change the whole model. And there's too much corruption. There's too many people involved. There's too many things to change. And we're trying to change the sport completely to a new model. Yeah. So it is not easy, but MMA you can because it's still young. So somebody has to take the responsibility to do that. And all the top promotions that's out there are not willing to do that because they're all about money, balance sheet, green or red, and in the end of the day, exit strategy, that's what we're here for. We got shareholders to be happy. And then you have His Highness Sheikh Khalid, who's like, let's change the sport, that's what we're here for. So let's go in, let's do the sacrifice, let's go around the world. We make stars. So if you look at it, Johnny Walker from Brazil, Francis Ngannou from the heavyweight champion of the world, Khamzat Chimaev, Mohammed Makaev, Benoit Santini, Ilya Taporia, Jarrah Selawi. I can go on with name, Stefan Lohman, go name after name, everything that came from Brave, for the sacrifice that Brave has done by globalizing. And today we're the most global sport, but the benefit, when you look back at it, apart from the idea that we're the most global sport, nice to say that, but apart from that, the benefit or the result is key of how that you don't really need the 100,000 or 1 million social media followers. You actually need to put your hands in dirt and do the work. You can actually take them and get them, in front of people and knock the door and say, that's a good fighter. You want to fight him? And you do that and you get a superstar.
Yeah.
I have a random question for you before we finish. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen during one of these international trips that you were like, wasn't expecting to see that?
It's crazy. I don't know. I'm just thinking about it. All the countries are roaming in my head. But no, I so many crazy things around the world. It's just I can't think of one moment specifically. But
so imagine you saw some stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Brazil was interesting, right? I mean,
I don't know why I was going to mention Brazil for some reason.
Brazil was interesting. I've I've had an interesting thing because when I went to Brazil for the first time, so you know, now that I have experience going to Thailand, at that time, so I was like going to Brazil. It's something of a similar feeling. So I don't know the country. I don't know much about it. We don't have an embassy there, so you know, it's at that time.
It's supposed to be a dangerous place.
Yeah, just 2017. So I was like, it should be dangerous, and you know, I've heard stories about things and all that stuff. So I was like, you know, I called my friends, the partners, and I'm like, you know, can you arrange someone, you know, there for security and stuff? And they said, oh, we got the special forces called BOPs. They call them BOP. And then I searched, and I was like, these are the special forces, you know. So the retired ones, they have the license for the guns and everything else. It's like great, you know. So I go there, I get 2 BOPs with me, and everything is great, you know. And then we reach one of the days. I was there for a week. I was reaching the hotel. I got out, and there was one guy taking his gun out and sprinting towards me.
What?
And immediately this BOP takes his gun out, one of the BOPs, and points at him, and the guy turns around and sprints back.
What?
So I was like, good job, you know. I mean, like, well done to the BOP, you know. So I go back, I get into the hotel, and I'm sitting and I'm talking to some of the guys, and then the organizer comes, and then he was like, what's going on? Everything's okay. And then we're talking, and I spoke about the incident that happened. And he's like, oh, okay. You should have told me. I would have arranged security for me. I said, no, we got BOPs with me, man. I got some really good guys they've arranged. He said, let me tell you something, you know. There's a lot of people that try to rob people who they think are VIPs or are foreigners. And how do they get the information? Are from their BOP security. And for a second, I was like, oh. But I think the BOP with me was a good BOP. You know? So
you had a good BOP.
He was a good BOP.
He was a good BOP.
Yeah.
On that note, we have to wrap it up here. Mohammed, thank you so much for your time
man.
today. It was an
Real
absolute pleasure.
My pleasure was mine. Excited.
Thank
Hopefully next time again.
Yes,
For sure.
agreed.
Thanks a lot, Mohammed.
Thank you very much.
That's a wrap.